One thing I find over and over again that we seem to celebrate, I hear this around Mother's Day as well, is we strive for independence in our society, right? And I'm not just talking about like patriotic independence. I'm talking about that like I don't need anybody independence, right? I don't need your help. I don't want anybody's help. I don't want to need anything. I just want to be independent. But that's the kind of thing that can also lead us to pride if we're not careful, right? Or it can really sometimes just be a mask for this thing of loneliness or hurt. And God didn't create us to be so fiercely independent that we forget about like our dependence on Him. You need to stop and realize I don't owe my next breath to myself. I don't make my heart beat the next beat on my own. So just purely on a physical level, my story's bigger than me and I don't control everything about me. I have to recognize that, right? Nor were we created to be independent from other people in God's family, the body of Christ. When I do that, when I pull away, it robs me of a real sense of purpose that I find in serving other people, a real sense of worth. You know, somebody has said that if I only live for myself, then in the end, I'll only have myself to show for myself, which I think there's a lot of truth in that. And what's even better than experiencing God on your own is experiencing the real power, the goodness, the grace of God in connection with other people and the broader, deeper community of others. And yet, the truth is so many people, even in church, never really experienced that, right? And what we've been through over this past year or more especially is it's made this exponentially more difficult. We've gotten even more used to being on our own. And as much as I love the lessons that we've learned about online church and how important, connecting and using some of this, and we've been stretched and we're doing a lot more than we were doing a year ago, and that's a blessing. But I can remember when a lot of the church gurus were just kind of saying, hey, here's your new normal. This is what church is going to look like for the rest of forever. And I was just ready to step off. I was ready. I'm done. I can't pastor a church like that. Because there's just something about being together. Why do you spend hundreds of dollars to go see somebody in concert or go see your favorite sports team when the best seat in the house might be on your TV at home? Because there's just something about being together, right? But in our culture today, we have so many external blessings, and yet so many people internally, maybe relationally, are just impoverished. We often refer to this relational poverty, somebody's talked about it with a much more common name, and it's this thing of loneliness. And we're such a social culture, and we're so much more of that now than we were even a year or two ago. But so many people still feel so incredibly lonely on their own. So why is this? Well, somebody did some research on this, and they came up with the 3 top reasons they thought people are so lonely. Now, these are just opinions, and a lot is changing, and these are based on some research. So you can disagree or agree with this as you want. You always have the right to be wrong if you want to disagree with me, okay? But I tend to agree. Either way, though, I think this is worth thinking about. They said the first one was increased mobility. It's talking about the fact that we move around a lot. In fact, their study said the average American changes residences like every 5 years. Some of you can relate to that. Actually, if you're between the ages of like 20 and 40, you average a new address every 3 years nowadays. I was thinking about this. Our family had 8 different addresses in 3 different states, 6 different cities over a period of 12 years before God finally planted us here in Blue Springs, over 12 years ago. And even then, though, when I thought about living here in Blue Springs, we've had 3 different addresses since we've lived here. Now, I don't recommend moving around a lot like that because it's really, really hard to put down roots and have long-term relationships when we just don't stick around. But number 2, they cited was modern conveniences. You kind of have to think through this a little bit, but like even this last year has taught us a lot of things that can change relationally. But I had to really think about this because I read something that talked about how air conditioning, like central air conditioning, had a really big social impact. And this kind of predates most of us, I think. But before the air conditioner, like where did people hang out to socialize? And especially in the evening time when things got cool, right? They'd go outside. They'd sit on their lawns and they'd hang out in their front yard, right? Because it was cooler outside. Everybody was like, hey, how you doing? You get to know your neighbors and Now we're inside, and because it's air conditioned, it feels nice, right? I don't want to feel sticky all the time, especially in the Midwest. You know, another modern convenience they talked about was, if you remember, older homes had detached garage, and nowadays all the garages are attached. They're like underneath your main. I mean, you just drive in, do your little bat cave, right? You can hit the button, door goes up. You're inside, door goes down. You never have to see anybody. You don't have to talk to your weird neighbor. You don't have to wave at anybody if you don't want to, right? You just kind of do it. And you can live in the same neighborhood for years and never even have to talk to the people beside you if you don't want to. It's modern conveniences. And there's also, I mean, a lot of you'll know what I'm talking about. The under 30 crowd probably won't have a clue, but the answering machine. How many of you ever had an actual box sitting on your counter with the little tape cassettes that you had to, yeah. Those, if you're like my age or older, you remember, like, to find out who was calling you, you had to do what? Pick it up, right? Yeah, seriously. Some of y'all are like, what? Yep. Now, to get ready for this, though, I know it's crazy, but okay, the answer machine came along, and suddenly you could start screening your calls. A little different than we do it now, right? But you'd have to wait there. You could be sitting there waiting for whoever's on. You could listen a little bit to who they were at first. You know, beep, hey, Dennis, I'm calling. Oh, no, I'm not talking to them, right? So you just kind of walk away. You could do that kind of thing and distance yourself. And then we got really fancy. We got caller ID boxes. How many had the little white box that would kind of show the caller ID? So the list goes on, but just little by little, we were able to kind of lock people out. And so I think there's some truth in this, too. There's a third big challenge. This is something we all relate to nowadays. Social media makes it really, really, really easy to distance, right? Which I acknowledge. So social media has some really, really great benefits as well. It can be a blessing. I use all kinds of different forms of it. We use it here at church, and there's a lot of benefit. But at the same time, it's just not the same as face-to-face contact with people. And what one researcher on LinkedIn, I read an article. I found this on social media, so there's a little, I don't know, it's funny to me. But it was related to a Psychology Today article. It was stunning. The line that really grabbed my attention, the author said this. They said that, oops, I don't have it up there. I'll read it for you. Social media is creating an epidemic of deferred loneliness. That's what they said. Social media is creating an epidemic of deferred loneliness. Now think about this, okay? It's like you feel a little bit lonely, so you post something on Facebook, right? Or you upload a picture to Instagram or tweet something or whatever. And then generally speaking, sometimes almost immediately, you start getting a little feedback, right? Somebody likes it, yeah, right? And it feels good. Somebody says, hey, you look really good in your selfie. And you're like, yeah, I do look good in my selfie. So you post another one, and you get this immediate feedback. And the problem is, okay, you know how little it actually takes to like double click a picture, hit the like, whatever, and just kind of keep going on. And so we know it doesn't fix the loneliness. What it does is it just defers it. Feels good in the moment, didn't really do anything for me relationally. So a lot of us, we're going through life with hundreds of social friends, but very few, if any, that we could call in the real time of need, and we know they would be there for us. Very few we could reveal our hearts to. And deep down, when we're silent enough to kind of really think about this, there's just something we believe's not working. Something is missing. And it might not just be something that's missing. It might be a someone that's missing. Yeah, I know the church answer is Jesus, right, and that's true. But I also mean just like the right neighbor, the right friend, the right connection with someone else. And it might just be a someone that's missing. It might be a group of someones that are missing from your life. You might be just the right community away from really seeing some positive change and changing your own future. You might be one group of growing followers of Jesus that you do life together, that you have someone to go through the ups and downs, the highs and lows, that lift you up, that pray for you, that encourage you, people that always have your back, right, that get you. A group of people who, like, when you struggle, they can say, hey, we're with you. We know what that feels like. Us too. There's no shame in sharing that. We love you. We're behind you. And you might honestly just be that right community away from changing the future of your family, generations. In fact, as a church, we can look back now. We've got enough history where we can see more and more the fruits of these types of long-term relationships that have been built over the years, and a lot of you are new, and so that's what really excites me about this ongoing story that's bigger than us, because it's rare. It really is. But I'm saddened by so many people that maybe go to church for a long time as well that never get to experience it. They come into our church family and never get to experience those kinds of close relationships. You don't see continued growth through a lot of the changes we've gone through as a church unless people are incredibly committed to working together through a lot of that stuff, right? And that kind of story can begin over and over and over and over again with new people that come into our family and share the same values. When you're willing to share your life with each other, when you're willing to step out and take a risk relationally, share the good times and bad times, be there for each other. But I get it. It takes some vulnerability, right? It's risky sometimes, especially if you've been hurt in relationships before and you know what this loneliness kind of feels like. You don't want to feel that again. And it can be especially hard. But the alternative is what? To live lonely, to isolate, to kind of put on a face and a mask that everything's okay when it's really not. I started to try to make a list of things, and lists are dangerous, just things we've done over the years here together, things that I've really missed over the last year or so especially, right? And I'm talking about things outside of Sunday mornings, things that we've done in our community. Like I remember we've worked on each other's homes together. Some of you have been over and helped me. I've helped you, right? We've landscaped. We've raked yards together and put bags of leaves, and we passed out hot chocolate at midnight before together. Some of you remember some of those things. We've taken lunches to the homeless. We've helped make dinner for single moms and their kids. Like some of us, we've packed thousands and thousands of those backpack snack packs down at Harvesters right together. And we've bagged nasty carrots and potatoes and put our hands in mush and stuff together. And we had our own food pantry for a long time, you remember, until it kind of outgrew us. And we've raised and given money away to serve people and send people to the mission field and help victims and do things in our own community. And we've fixed cars for people. And, we've cared for each other's kids when we're sick. We've made meals for parents, and that's more than you can count, because there's been a lot of loving and baby reproducing around here. So we do a lot of things for new families and new moms. And, just look at our Life Point Kids ministry. We've taken trips, vacations together sometimes, right? Eating tons of food together. And I could go on and on and on and on and on. But the point is that those are the kind of things that are really at the heart of what Life Point Crossing is all about. And COVID, it almost felt like it just slammed some of the momentum. We were rebuilding a lot of this stuff and just kind of brought it to a halt. And now we're just kind of separated. And as much as I love what we do here on the weekends and the serving opportunities we have here, very few of those things I just talked about can happen here on the weekends. Life together happens outside of here. And every single one of you are important to this vision happening and becoming others-oriented, right? It's an awesome reflection of the heart and the body of Christ. And what we're aiming for really is a modern reflection of what was going on in the very first century church. New Testament community. You can read more about it if you want. Read through the book of Acts, this history that's recorded there. But I want to look at a couple of verses at the beginning of this just to kind of see how this looked. It says in Acts 2:42, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, the breaking of bread, and to prayer. In other words, it was a community. It was a community, and they were centered around Christ. He wasn't the first of a bunch of things. He was right at the center of everything. He was at the core. And so it goes on. Everyone was filled with awe. Many wonders and signs were performed by the apostles. And the believers, all right, don't miss this, the believers were together, and they had everything in common. So there's some cultural differences there for us, but the heart of it, I think, is exactly the same. You want to see love, you want to see mutual dependence. Here's love. It says they sold property and possessions and gave to anyone who had need. They worshiped together, it says, at the temple each day. And that, to me, is kind of a picture of what we're doing right now, right? A picture of the church. But they met in homes for the Lord's Supper. And so that, to me, kind of gets a little more focused. That's small groups. That's life outside of here. And they shared their meals with great joy and generosity. And for me, that's a picture of life together outside of these formal meetings, serving, doing more in our community. You might be just one community away like this from changing the course of your own future. But I promise, okay, listen, you don't just stumble into that. You don't just fall into this kind of thing. It doesn't just show up by accident. A community like this, it doesn't just plop in your lap. You have to step out. You have to be vulnerable. You have to create it with the love of Christ and invest yourself in a very intentional way, maybe in a very vulnerable way. But what I want to do is this, because I know you want, I know we all need it. Let me give you 3 qualities just to kind of think about this week of what good connected neighbors look like, all right? You ready for this? Yeah. All right, so me and Wyatt, we're going to talk about this later, right? We'll see, Dennis. Well, here's the first quality, refrigerator rights. And I've used this phrase before. I first heard this phrase used by Andy Stanley. I don't know if he originated. I've heard it in other places as well. But to me, it's exciting, okay? Because when you think about real close, authentic relationships, those are the kind of relationships where we have refrigerator rights. Like if I think about this, if I'm expecting someone to come over to my house and they knock on the door, it's kind of strange, but family just kind of comes in, right? So we're close. I'll leave the door open for you. You can come on in. And if they want something in my refrigerator, you don't have to ask. You know where it's at. Help yourself to it. What I have is yours. What you have is mine. But think about, okay, how weird it would be. I show up at your house, and we kind of know each other. Maybe I've met you. We don't know each other real well, but you invite me into your house. We'd probably hang out at first, probably in the living room or somewhere kind of open where it's for guests, right? Because that's where you hang out when you don't know each other real well. And they said, but then I say, okay, hang on, excuse me for just a second. And I walk into your kitchen, open up your refrigerator, I start kind of nosing around, digging around, find something I like. You're probably scratching your head like, that's weird. Maybe you even say something. What are you doing? So I make myself a little ham, a little bologna sandwich, grab some chips, come back, sit down. I was like, oh, my bad. Did you want me to get you something while I was up too? And you're like, what? You might not say anything right there because you're nice, but later on when you're talking to people, you're just like, you will not believe what Pastor Dennis did when he came over to my house. It's like the weirdest thing. He just got up, helped himself to a bologna sandwich from the fridge. Now, why is that weird? Because we don't know each other that well, right? We haven't established that kind of relationship, that kind of closeness and trust. But when you're family, okay, when you're tight, when you're close, when you know people well enough, yeah, you can have the soda and bologna all you want. In fact, this is what they did. Again, look at Acts chapter 2. All the believers were together. They had everything in common. Refrigerator rights. We're such family. Anything I have is yours. And so I would just ask you, think about this. How many people outside of your immediate family would have refrigerator rights in your life? Literally or figuratively. Now, if you're only able to tell me, 1 or 2 maybe, I would argue that you're not experiencing all that God would have you to experience. You're missing out on a lot of blessings. And that thought might be mind-blowing for some of you, but I would say you might even be experiencing this relational poverty in your life, this loneliness, and don't even know it because God doesn't just want us to have personal relationships with Him. That's important, but He also created us for this shared, broader relationship with each other, a community. And this is an area I think, well, quite honestly, I being out of formal ministry for a lot of years before I came back into it, I think really did me some good because I can remember back in Bible college, I'm training to be a pastor and all this, there was this prevailing thought, and I don't remember if it was actually verbalized or not, but I can remember hearing it, that it came across like, okay, you ministers, you pastors, you always have to be on guard. It was what some people called the senior pastor mystique. And it's another reason I've never liked the title senior pastor. You're never going to see that in front of my name if I can help it because I just don't like it. And it goes back to this because it basically said, okay, you can't be really good close friends with the regular church people, whatever that means, because they've got to see you as a man of God. They got to see you a step above, right? So they can receive from you. You have to kind of establish yourself. And so I remember back in the early years of ministry, I tried to guard this senior pastor mystique. And so we weren't real close friends with a lot of the regular folks, whoever they are. But guess what? It didn't work. We got burned out. I left ministry for a lot of years. We found ourselves very lonely because the problem is Guess what? I'm regular folk. I got hang-ups. I got problems. And the problem is regular folks need each other. So after a few years out of ministry in the real world, so to speak, when I got out of that ivory tower, we could just be regular folks for a while. And that's where I decided, okay, God, if you ever put me back in that role again, if I ever get back into church work again, we're not just going to always be Pastor Dennis and Kimberly, Sister Kimberly. Sometimes we're just going to be Dennis and Kimberly. In fact, sometimes we're just going to be Denny, Bill, and Kiki, or D and K, and Mo Better, and K-Rock, whatever. I mean, we're just going to hang out. We're just going to be people. We're going to be raw. And we're going to open up our lives to people. We're going to open up our homes, and we're going to let them see the scars, and we're going to share our struggles. And, we're just going to take risks to be loved and love other people. And sometimes, you know what? We've been hurt by that. We have. We've been burned. Sometimes we disappoint people. But I've learned the risk of not having that in my life is far greater than the risk of having those hurts. We have to have it because that's how God created us, to depend on Him, to depend on each other. So we have refrigerator rights. Here's a second quality real quick of an authentic neighbor if you're taking notes. I just call it funky feet. And so if you know me, a couple of things that give me problems in life: cats and feet. I don't like either one of them. And I've never seen a perfect foot. Some of you might think you got model feet, and that's great. I don't care for them, not even my own feet, particularly not my own feet. Now, my wife, I've shared this, I pick on her feet all the time because she's got these little cute, she can doll them up, put them in. They are so pretty symmetrical, pretty nice little cute feet, right? She likes to show them off. But they're very practical too, especially like with her toes. They're not real big. But some of you have done this. You'll drop something if she's wearing flip-flops or something just to challenge her to pick it up because it's weird. She can do some of the most amazing things. I remember when we were youth pastors way back, we do this thing every once in a while called the Spaghetti Olympics. You pick anything, you can do games with it, right? So we did it with spaghetti, and one of the games was, you got a team of people, you got to run to the end of the whatever, pick up as much spaghetti with your feet as you can, hop all the way back, and so the first team back wins. I kid you not. She went down, picked up the entire bowl of spaghetti with her feet on the first time, brought it all the way back, and dropped it in. Just like, how can you do that? Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. My feet are just janky, okay? I got like size 13 feet, half of them are toes. My kids won't be seen with me if I'm wearing flip-flops. It's just bad. But we all have janky feet, in my opinion. And to me, it's actually a sign of being a good neighbor. Here's what I mean, okay? Romans 15:17 tells us this. Here's the power of community. We're told to accept one another, funky feet and all, accept one another just as Christ accepted you. And when we are accepted unconditionally and we're loved in the context of real community, Paul actually says, okay, that brings praise to God. That looks good on what God wants to be seen as, right? When we love one another, that brings praise to God. And some of the greatest experiences, honestly, I can think of inside church and outside of church. It's where I've been able to find myself in the middle of a real, authentic community of people that were secure enough to even share their flaws, their flawed feet, and spiritually speaking. In fact, I'm just going to be real about some of the groups I remember being a part of that I miss before. There's been more than one time where there was a guy in a group we were in that just kind of felt secure enough to open up and say, I'm really struggling with looking at some stuff I'm not supposed to be looking at, or I'm lusting. He just shows his flawed feet to us, and we've held one another accountable, and we prayed for each other and helped them grow through those kind of battles. More than one time, I can remember someone has lost their way, or maybe they've drifted from their family, or pursued things that didn't matter, and in the context of real community, we even got in each other's faces a little bit and said, listen, I care about you too much not to say something. I love you too much to let you keep going down that path. You need to get home and be a dad to your kids, or you need to be a better wife to your husband. You're drifting. And only in community are you able to safely kind of help each other in those ways. There's been more than one time where one or two wives didn't even like their husbands. I remember this. I'm sick of him. I don't like the way he's treating me. And we've encouraged one another and prayed for each other and helped take maybe that relationship that could have failed and walked through and walked with them. There are times where we had challenges with our kids, and it's amazing what happens when there's a challenge with our kids, and then all of a sudden it's not just our challenge anymore, right? Someone can say, I've been there. I know what you're talking about. You're not weird. You're not wrong. You're not sinful. And I'll just be real honest. There's been times where I've been in groups where I just didn't really like everybody. Sometimes we get on each other's nerves, right? I mean, it's almost a spiritual principle. You can get couples together, and I'm talking about it as a man. This is going to get me in trouble. But moms, you get more than a few of y'all together for an extended period of time, something's going to break down. It just is. Don't look at me like I'm not telling the truth either, because y'all know. Well, she looked at me funny, and then she says something to him, and then those guys start to get in. Well, you can't say that to my wife. But guess what? Okay, the groups that I'm thinking of where I've seen this, guess what didn't happen? At least in my experience. Let me tell you what didn't happen. Nobody left the group. We used that as an opportunity to kind of build and meld, and it actually became growing opportunities for us. But it's like, well, bless God, if Christians going to act like that, I'm just leaving this stupid church. Right? They're all just a bunch of hypocrites, especially that senior pastor Dennis, because he's supposed to be. But nobody does those kinds of things in real community, not in real family, not real neighbors. We stay together, we work things out, we create space for each other's flaws. But since we're family, okay, we stay together, and when we were wrong, we owned it. We apologized. We did what good neighbors would do. And when we were wronged, we chose to forgive, and we tried to work through it. And we became more like Christ because people stayed involved in his body, in his church. And people outside the church, they see that kind of thing, and they're like, wow, that's rare, that's unique. Look at how they love each other. Even when they don't get along, right? We all have flawed, funky feet. In fact, it's interesting to me that in Scripture, anytime there was someone born with like a physical infirmity, some kind of physical challenge, almost always in the Bible, people would look at that and say, oh, okay, well, that's the result of sin, right? Either they sinned or their mom and daddy sinned at some point, but there must be sin. And there's this amazing story back in the Old Testament about a guy named Mephibosheth. It's fun to say Mephibosheth. But he had an accident, and he was lame in both feet, the Bible says. So society had kind of just rejected him. But the king at that time was King David, had mercy on him and showed love to him because of a prior relationship he had with his dad. But there's this powerful verse in 2 Samuel. It says this, Mephibosheth, it says, lived in Jerusalem because he always ate where? He always ate at the king's table. And then it goes on to say this. It just kind of seems out of context when you understand the power behind it. It tells us he was lame in both feet. So why is that important to this? Well, don't miss the power of this, okay? Because all of society had rejected this guy, but the king accepted him, and he always ate at the king's table. And he was lame in both feet, it says. Well, guess what? Okay, we all have lame feet. We all have funky feet. But when you're at the king's table, guess what you're not looking at? Right? You don't see the feet because it's covered by the table of the king. And I don't know, there's a lot of metaphorical lesson in that for me. But if you are at the king's table, we pull up to the table of Jesus with our flawed feet together. The King of Kings, we dine together, we love each other. And we're not focused on our funky feet. We're focused on each other. And there's just power in that to me. And since we're discussing these weird metaphors that don't necessarily go together, might as well stick with it. Let me give you a third sign of a real close connected neighbor. So we fight lions together, okay? A great connected neighbor is someone who experiences collective courage. Fighting lions, right? I think about this in my own neighborhood. I feel pretty safe at night because, I don't know how your neighbor, I'm literally surrounded by retired military guys. I don't want to know what kind of arsenal is surrounding me by. So if something goes down in my neighborhood, I feel pretty safe. Why? Because there's a collective courage in knowing that someone's got my back, right? We don't even need a neighborhood watch. We got it. We're safe. 1 Peter 5:8, it tells us this, okay, to be alert of sober mind because your great enemy, the devil, he prowls around like a roaring lion seeking for someone to devour. And again, don't miss the connection between the devil and a cat. Just, you need to understand that, okay? It's in the cat family, very direct link there. You can find it anywhere in life if you want. Anyway, it's a side point too. We do have a spiritual enemy who wants to devour. He wants to pick you off. He's looking for ways to get in any crevice and crack in your family and in your life to be able to destroy it. So we got to have each other. Now, I want to show you a real quick video clip that I think is a really great picture of how we stand together as Christ. All right, just kind of watch this. You see this water buffalo. And so we've got some lions that are ready to devour. So this guy's all by himself. He's vulnerable, right? He takes off running. We're going to get him, big guy. Oh no, there's the little one. The little one, he's a little more vulnerable. He's easier. Let's go after him, right? So you're like, oh no. Kinsey was asking me, am I going to have to watch somebody get killed? Well, you kind of think so because it's pretty bad, right? This looks like it's over for this guy. But one thing the cats didn't remember is that buffalo stick together, right? And isn't this awesome? They forgot that buffaloes will have each other's back. So then all of a sudden the story changes, right? This little guy is not alone. He is going to make it. There you go. Get out of the wild, little kitty, get. And watch this. Woo! Pretty nice, right? I can watch that a lot. But I mean, if you stick together, this is kind of what happens, right? We fight lions. Now listen, okay, if water buffalo can stick together like that, why can't we? Why can't we have each other's back? Like, why is it so unnatural for us when it's natural, in other words? Don't you think we could do that and fight together and be there with one another? Because when the enemy comes, and he does for all of us, he picks us off, we don't have to roll over. And our enemy comes to attack, but we've got each other's backs, and we're on each other's sides, and we're going to stand together, and you don't go down without the support of other people. You don't want to fight things like cancer and illness alone, right? You don't want to hurt financially alone. You don't want to have to go through the pain of a kid wandering off alone. And even when you screw up, even when you do something stupid, you don't want everybody turning their back on you and shaming you. And what you want is the strength of the body of Christ standing with you. You want someone to love you, pray for you, encourage you, fight with you, because you are alone in that moment. You feel vulnerable. And I know some of you right now probably feel some of this. You feel vulnerable. You're lonely. You feel alone. But listen, you are one community away, and I don't believe it's an accident that you're in this community today. You are one community away of changing the course of your destiny if you choose to. And when you have that, there is such a richness in it. It's so meaningful. And the non-believing world around us starts to look at that as well, and they're like, man, do you see how they love each other? I mean, they take care of each other. They don't just talk about it, they do it. This is truly, I don't understand what they believe, but like I want to have what they have. I'm missing that. And then suddenly these words that Jesus said again come to life, where your love for one another will prove to the world that you're my disciples. And one of the greatest ways we let this light shine to our world is loving those within the family with such a contagious way that other people want to be a part of that as well. And some of you don't have that. You've got relational poverty maybe, and you don't even realize it, or you're just one community away. But it's not going to happen by accident, okay? It's got to be something you choose to put yourself into. You got to be it to have it. So what? So what do you take away from this today? I want to give you a couple of things to think about, and then I want to pray with you, because some of you are going to be real honest, and you're just going to say, you know what? I don't have that, and I need that, but I'm afraid of that, and I don't have community who's there for me, but I see the need in my life because I feel lonely. We feel lonely. But what I want you to understand is, okay, that our God is a relational God. He created us to show his love for us in a very relational way so that we could love him back. And he gives us the opportunity to choose to do that, because love without choice isn't a relationship. So he shows his love to us through his son Jesus. And Jesus was known as the friend of sinners. That's what got him in trouble with a lot of people, right? He'd hang around the worst of the worst, and he would love them. Not even in spite of, he just loved them, period. But he wouldn't leave them where they were. He loved them too much to do that. Our God is a relational God, so much so he sent his own son Jesus, God in the flesh, to reveal his heart. And there's some of you, you're going to recognize, okay, I don't even have that. I don't even have that relationship with God. You can be a churchgoer. You can have been in church for a long, long time and still not have a relationship with God, just like you can be a person who's never been at church and not have a relationship with God. But suddenly, okay, maybe even through this, you're thinking, I'm drawn to that. I need that. I need that relationship as well. And that's God himself. That's his spirit speaking directly to you. It's a pretty awesome thing when you think about it. And maybe you know it. Maybe you know today is the time that you take that step to say yes to him. Yes, God, I need your forgiveness. I need your grace. I want to know you. And so, Jesus, today by faith, I give my life to you, and I trust you. So would you just bow with me? I want to pray with you for just a moment. And I want to ask for just a couple of minutes to whatever being honest with God looks like for you right now. I want you to try to do that. And I just want to cut to the chase and just ask, how many of you would be willing to say, I don't have that community you've been talking about, Dennis, who's there for me. And I recognize it's a significant need in my life. Nobody looking around. Would you be willing just to raise your hand, maybe just as a first step? I'm not going to ask you to do anything else. I'm not going to put you on the spot or embarrass you, but you're just willing to say, I need it. I see those hands. Just lift them up. Just tell God right now, as your prayer, God, I need it, and I want that. You can put your hands down. If you're here today and you know maybe it's time for you to trust your life to Jesus, and you'd say, yes, Jesus, I need your forgiveness. I need your grace. I want to know you in a more personal, relational way. If that's you, that's why you came today, and you can sense it. If this is your moment, would you be willing to lift your hand just for a moment? I'm not going to embarrass you. I just want to pray with you as well. Would you lift your hand in a way of just saying, Jesus, I'm taking this first most important step. I'm going to choose to follow you. Just lift your hand right now to Jesus. I say yes to you. I take this step. Well, God, I thank you this morning. I thank you for those who are honest enough to just kind of look at their own relational poverty and see their need. And I just pray, God, that you would do what only you can do. I pray that you would give them a desire, not just to have that personal relationship with you, but a shared one, to know that you can be known in the broader community, that context. And not just go to church, God. We want to be your church, your family, your body, loving each other, doing life together in a way that brings glory to you. So, God, I just pray you would help us to be a church that's so full of your love that others want to have what we have, that we could share the goodness of Christ with them as well. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
All right, we're so glad to spend this service together. I know that I'm feeling encouraged after a year of a lot of loneliness to continue taking those steps towards building real community. Now, you can continue the discussion in our Facebook group this week, and don't forget we have resources for discussion and more by going to getalifepoint.com and clicking on messages. Remember, we have new to LifePoint this week.
New to LifePoint.
If you're a returning guest with us this morning, we have a free mug for you that says Live a Bigger Story on it, and you can meet a couple members of our team. We're happy to answer any questions that you have. And we hope you'll join us back here next week.
Happy Mother's Day.
Bye.